Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Master Store. Top 8 initial matches here at day number 2 of the competition. $500,000 on the line, and all these players have already booked 5 digits worth of US dollars. But can they improve it further? My name is Felkeine, and I'm joined by Gia. Coming up next, we have fellow Filipino Staz going up against Magoho. And I probably said that name wrong.
Don't worry,
We're
I
going to
did
get into
a
the game
bunch of times
momentarily, but it's a hunter versus a warrior. And, one of the things that we mentioned going into this top 8, 5 different classes represented in the top 8, something that I wasn't expecting. We do have the mage and the warrior, but the hunter, the priest, and the rogue. We just saw priest falter, but, was it because of the deck list? Was it because of the draw pan out? Was it because of agency that was decisions make it back and forth? Lots of questions to go back to the drawing board for Suni.
Yeah, throughout the whole weekend, I've been hyping Priest as it was the deck for Seoul, but really, in terms of the results so far, Reno Hunter has had the best performance in terms of win rate, and it's exemplified by having 2 of them in the top 8, and we're going to see another one from Staz, now facing against a different matchup. I've not cast Reno Hunter versus Control Warrior all weekend, have you?
Control Warrior versus Hunter has kind of gone back and forth. Some people said, oh, if you have like the Hunter package with Zul'jin, you're pretty favored. This is going to the World Championship back when Rise of Shadows coming out. I remember I was sitting down with Hunter Ace and Viper, and they're like, yeah, like if you play like this, Hunter should win like almost every time. But then as like the meta continued on, people were going away from Control Warrior to Bomb Warrior. It felt like, that Warrior was starting to strike back against Hunter. So, I'm still on the fence. I'm waiting to see if it's favored one way or the other. I do think that Highlander Hunter does a good job putting on pressure, and Control Warrior does take it very slow, given that a lot of their package from the new cards tend to be heavier, right? Like our Mega Dio and all those other cards.
And there also is that asterisk that Magaho's Warrior deck is just not one or the other. It's Control Warrior with a bit of a bomb package, or you could say it's Bomb Warrior with a bit of a control package.
Sure.
It's his own take on things, and that way it's built to be almost like a Reno deck, and the fact that Staz's deck is a true Reno deck makes me really unsure as to who I should put the favor on for this.
Yeah, so I'm going to just give the slight nod to Hunter, because if you look at Warrior statistics across the board throughout the Battlefy website, Warrior is one of the worst performing classes. And the reason why yet we still see a couple Warriors go through is because it's very polarized. They either get crushed by Mage or they are crushing everything that's not Mage. At least that's what we think. So I still feel like Warrior could be like one of the classes that actually might be a lot better than the data implies, because there's such a high volume of mages that it took a lot of L's to get to the top 8. But once we're here in the top 8, there's not that many mages.
Yeah, I think after the 12 rounds of Swiss, Mage sat at exactly 50% win rate, which is pretty funny to me. It was just a meh bring at 50%. If we want to oversimplify things. But if you're going to give the nod to Hunter, I'm going to take the opposite stance and say, at least for game 1, that I feel like Warrior would be slightly favored, just because in my days of jamming a lot of mid-range Hunter, and I mean a lot. Oh, is this not actually Magoho?
We might have the wrong deck list, we might have the wrong player, we might have the wrong matchup, we might be at the wrong event. I'm not even sure. Either way, we'll just play it by ear. For now, take a look at this Reno deck list, which fills out all 30 cards with singletons, highlighted by Zephyrus the Great and Reno the Relicologist as the 2 new no-duplicate legendaries. You do have the secondary deck, which is better versus the aggressive decks like Mazihar, Bone Wraith, Ice Barrier, and then you have the anti-control list, which is, you know what? Let's take out all the non-legendary cards and put in more legendaries.
I love it. People's wallets probably don't, but I want to say that the graphic design for Grandmasters, with the way the decks are laid out, usually the second column in the primary deck is full of air, right? Because people would be playing 2-ups. But with the resurgence of Reno decks, we get to see a nicely filled out, pretty symmetrical graphic presentation of decks.
A lot of stuff going on. It feels like I'm looking at a Crayola box, and I'm just trying to look at every color in the Hearthstone spectrum.
Yeah.
But yes, the tertiary deck has 14 legendaries in total, and so does Felkeine's deck. So it looks like we are facing, we actually are going to be having the Reno mages face off. There's only 2 of them, and they happen to play against each other. It'd be a very interesting story if both of them end up advancing from the groups.
Yeah, we were saying, me and Kibler, that the story of the top 8 would be very much how the mage killers have been doing well and made it to the top 8 because there was so much mage in Swiss. But now that it's been thinned out and there's less mage representation, maybe those mage killers fall victim to the warriors that made it to the top 8.
That's right. So let's see who gets the edge here. A lot of the mage mirrors tend to be predicated on who has the Luna's Pocket Galaxy, but we've seen some players find ways to be aggressive even without it. And, you know, they had Pocket Galaxy in hand, but yet they haven't played it, and they chose another route and ended up panning out really well. Felkeine's also a player that's been called out by some of his peers that aren't from France, saying that he could be the player to keep an eye out just from a technical play level. And I mean, he's got the deck, right, that most people are pegging as the ideal deck that you want to bring to this tournament. And if he's also, you know, keeping up with his technical play, and he gets good pan out on draws, that is a winning recipe.
He's riding on a recent second place at the Solari party, and also, I do believe he tweeted out a picture of him with ice cream, which, if anything, is indicative of World Championship potential. It is ice cream picture tweets.
I mean, yes, although the context behind ice cream pictures often was because you lost. You say, oh, you know, I lost in a tournament early, therefore let's go get some ice cream to pick up our spirits. That's how it started. And then it eventually has transcended into, well, Hunter just really likes ice cream, so he's a world champion.
I'm pretty sure he's had at least one victory ice cream picture sponsored by Orange.
Yeah, it was actually after his world championship. That's when he tweeted his ice cream picture. Everything else was bombed out at 0-2 or at 1-3. Gonna go get some ice cream.
Right. In any case, both players without the Pocket Galaxy in their opening hands, so just nothing too crazy happening in the early turns. I wouldn't be surprised if their deck lists were highly similar, if not identical, given that they are both from the French community, and a lot of those guys practice and communicate together.
Right. We have a good representation of a lot of French teams here with Arma, Solari, Gamers Origin, etc. And so, you know, Zhym, with a top 16 at DreamHack Tours, I believe, in the past, has that tournament experience, but in the top 8, will his experience be able to carry him?
Yeah, the way, just from a quick glance between the two deck lists, I do think they are card for card identical, going even into the secondary and tertiary decks. So these guys have tested together and landed on Reno Mage just being the nuts for this tournament, and this particular build, including Ooze in the primary, I think is very crucial to try and shore up that bad matchup against Rogue, which needs to be respected at least a little.
Yeah, this is a pretty bold call, but I like it from Zhym, which is to let Felkeine's Stargazer Luna stay alive. And this is a good recognition of, well, I'm trying to accelerate my game plan because I'm the one taking initiative.
Right.
Although the initiative isn't super powerful with his Arcane Keysmith, I think Zhym's looking for an opportunity to utilize the card draw to help fuel this mid-game.
And it also just lets him play stuff without really expending cards, so he can still go Mountain Giant Conch Calling next turn. And he did take Mirror Entity because it was the only one that did anything there, and that's quite unfortunate for Felkeine. One of the most expensive cards in his deck drawn, so the Luna cycle ends here.
I'm willing to go out and, on a limb and say these are all the unplayable cards in his deck.
Yeah.
I can't think of another card that he would be able to draw that's unplayable this turn.
Power of Creation.
Okay, Power of Creation. So it's everything but one card, it looks like. There's just so many expensive cards, but yet Felkeine drew all of them.
That's very unfortunate. And now he's going to have to play from behind, as Zhym is the first one to get Giants on board. And the Twilight Drake does a pretty poor job of contesting them, not that it can even attack this turn.
Yes, and Felkeine having the puzzle block of Yaxaron in his hand also adds insult to injury. Card 2 Defender, not very good, to be honest.
Just here to try and soak up damage, but the Mirror Entity as well. Wow.
So if he played Siamat, he was playing into the Mirror Entity.
He just didn't have a choice.
I mean, if you're Zhym, do you just push damage here? I think so.
And he probably conjures the Giant that gets a little bit softened up to play around, I guess, exactly Blizzard into Flame Strike over 2 turns. And it also just develops so much pressure.
Zhym has an easy value trade on the Twilight Drake as well. Trying to account for all the possibilities, whether or not he should or should just go for damage.
I
I
quite
like going the damage
Me
route.
too.
I want to close the game as fast as possible.
And it is not able to pull Puzzle Box, so creation into Safeguard is a way to stay alive, I think.
Sure, damage Stegatron would also be good.
Okay.
Sunwalkers are useful. Is that enough though?
So there's Flame Strike, but no ping available.
Oh, that should do it.
Yeah, that really should.
Yep, has this, and the Frost Bolts, clean kills all around. Zhym takes game number 1.
Wow.
Felkeine, or was it Felkeine that took the victory?
We flipped. We might be flipped. And we really cannot tell who's playing what because their lists
they're
are
both the same decks,
identical.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It seems like from the body posture that that Felkeine looked a little bit more upset or distraught.
It's hard to say. I know there are players that look distraught even when they win, but that's purely because they misplayed.
Yeah, or they're stressed and they're just trying to relieve the stress once the game is out, and then once they go back in, they're focused and composed. Right. We've all been there. So we'll let you guys know what's actually happening with the score. So if we do have an error there with the graphics, apologies.
Actually, we were viewing Staz versus Magoho. That's what it was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've gone
Staz
full
switched
circle.
his deck. And Magoho somehow went from warrior to mage.
This entire time.
Yes.
So I think this is confirmation that it was Felkeine that took the victory, and we're rolling into game 2 immediately. This time Zhym has Pocket Galaxy in the opener.
You sure about that?
Okay, are we supposed to try and cross-reference mouse movements or like arm movements with whose cursor is moving now to try and see who's playing what?
I don't know, you tell me. Frostbolt seems to be a really good pickup here early on. Frostbolt, a really powerful tempo tool just to try and even remove some of the threats like Stargazer Luna.
Okay, I'm gonna say Zhym is on the right side of the screen now because his mouse hand was moving when actions were being taken on that side of the screen. I could be egregiously wrong, but for simplicity's sake, let's just put them on being where they are aligned.
Spellbender to try and mess with the Luna's Pocket Galaxy.
Wait, never mind.
Felkeine is the top player.
Yeah, we can tell now. Because now he's like, oh, am I supposed to use this Lunas and walk into CS?
I mean, we saw Hatul rip it and got completely owned because of it.
But you know,
the payoff is so high, though.
Right. Given that it's a secret off of Magic Trick, it's not that likely.
It's a low probability.
And he didn't have a comfortable way of testing Pocket Galaxy. You don't want to be throwing away Frost Nova if you think it's counterspell either, because that spell is very valuable.
Okay, so the information's out there for Felkeine that it is a spell-based secret. Or attacking, it could be splitting image also as a last.
So just dropping a giant here seems okay also, just because it contests the Twilight Drake well.
And now Felkeine feels a little silly for not playing Pocket Galaxy, but that's like the power of the mind games.
Yeah. Bit of an egg on his face, but you know, in the meantime, Zhym hasn't drawn a Pocket Galaxy of his own and hasn't put on too much pressure, so.
Right, but he got a head start, a very good head start on the Pocket Galaxy by developing double snap here. So I think that, you know, Zhym's Magic Trick Spellbender bluff has really done quite the big damage just implicitly.
Oh, for sure. Okay. So Tiamat here can deal with the front half of the Snip Staff and the Twilight Drake. Yet another turn of Luna's Pocket Galaxy delayed. And I don't fault Felkeine for going for this because, you know, any of those minions sticking could be a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, so in Felkeine's mind, he has the long game figured out, right? Because he has the Luna's Pocket Galaxy played, so giving up value is totally fine. As long as he doesn't fall too far behind on tempo. So his job to remove the board is pretty straightforward, and he'll eventually make up that tempo through one-mana minions.
Ooh, that Reno is very
Oh
clutch
my
here.
goodness.
And Zhym, yeah, if we weren't sure enough, he is definitely the bottom player having to react to this. And we even saw that he intentionally forewent 2 extra damage by trading 2 microbots into the Ziliax instead of, say, rushing the Tiamat in order to develop a Tiamat with Divine Shield Wind Fury, which was a bigger threat. So the Reno was very painful for him there.
Yeah. Finally, an opportunity to drop that Pocket Galaxy after Felkeine has drawn 5 minions in a row. 4 turns of delayed Pocket Galaxy, and now Zhym picks up his own.
So essentially played on the same turn because of the bluff from Zhym.
Yes. It's a different game now. I mean, if it was the case where Felkeine had 1 mana minions, this would be a completely different scenario.
Yeah, would be over by now, I'd even say.
Alex Straza.
Very powerful. Just onto the board and puts him in range of Puzzle Box for Pyroblast Fireball lethal. Ooh.
Wait a second. Wait a second. 2 boxes?
That's more than 1 box.
I mean, that just seems great.
Yeah.
I would like a second box. Yes. No. All right, fine.
He's also playing the discovered polymorph instead of the natural copy, which is like a slight giveaway of information, I suppose, but no big deal.
Yeah, generally you want to withhold that information so that it's difficult for your opponent to count the range of possibilities. But by doing that, now you acknowledge that, well, there's another polymorph, as opposed to, well, there's a hidden card that I'm not sure. So I agree with you. I think that is suboptimal.
So Felkeine now can go for Giant Ray of Frosts and hope to get the 6 damage face. Alternatively, he could rip the Yogg box. I'm not actually aware of what secret is up right now.
Spellbender.
Okay. Here we go. Not a bad start.
Yes. Wow. Okay. All right.
Are we just going to see Jaina attacking for lethal?
Oh.
Wow. But he got armor.
That was
He got armor from the bite, so he got a minion. Okay. Ooh.
Okay, Shadow of
Wait,
Death.
that ruins all the Reno effects.
Well, Reno was play, but it does mess with Zephyr.
Yeah. So, oh my god, that's pretty funny. But Jaina going face for 8 and healing for 4, I think that's a pretty good outcome. It also removed the Caligos. Above average box, for sure.
Yeah, it didn't seem to have much detriment to his own board. In fact, it developed his own board. It removed his opponent's board and also did a little bit of damage. Well, actually, a lot of damage because Zhym's at 10. That's extremely relevant.
Yep.
Okay, that's hilarious that Micro Mummy comes back as a reborn minion and then also summons another Micro Mummy.
Yep. We just heard that too many times for me not to roleplay it. That. Okay. Anyway.
I approve.
Yeah, well, we have Fireball, Frostball, Ping for lethal next turn, so...
Yeah, or even just Frostbolt. Like... Well, you know, actually, I was thinking about Frostbolt now, but this makes a lot of sense, too. Just get another one.
So the only way out is a box of his own, and it's got to have some type of healing.
Yep, and removal.
Yeah. Or is there a way to perhaps counterspell, but that doesn't... Okay, he won't have the mana to go ball, bolt, ping, but as long as he bolts first, it should be fine, right? Even through a counterspell.
Ziliax.
That too?
But still not enough.
Okay, there we go. Oh, none of those are CS.
Nope. And looks like the Stargaze Luna train has stopped for now.
So Zhym heals for 3, but dies to ball, ping.
Right, double fireball.
from Felkeine's perspective, he might have to play around Counterspell though. Which means that he would want to go Frostbolt first, but that means he cannot fit in the ping for lethal. So this is actually... That's cute.
Yes.
Wow, that's actually a really tough situation. But the saving grace for Felkeine is that he's not dead on board, even if he doesn't deal lethal this turn.
It's true, although there is a Zilliax, which would make his life a little bit more complicated.
So maybe the line is to use the Frostbolt on the Zilliax. If it's a Spellbender, well, that kind of loses too, huh?
So I think you go Frostbolt, Fireball face.
Right, yeah, that is the best way to go around it.
Felkeine with a fist pump knows that he's won 2-0. Very quick series. Luna's Pocket Galaxy on both sides, yet not really coming to play here that much. Zhym ends up going for the hug with Felkeine. A good show of sportsmanship.
They are definitely buddies. And I just want to say that we saw the counterspell mind games. 2 bluffed counterspells, in fact, mess with an early decision and something that could have potentially messed up a lethal situation. But good on Felkeine, recognizing that there was absolutely a correct line of play there.
Yeah, so that's a really good example of how some people, they take a very simple approach of saying, like, well, if they have the counter spell, I lose. I'm just going to play Pocket Galaxy. Felkeine just showed you that you can play around it, and you still have a very good game plan to hedge against it and still get that victory. Granted, a couple things had to go right his way. The puzzle box obviously worked out very nicely. But, you know, this is just a good object lesson of exactly that, that you don't have to reduce yourself to just a 50-50 in that situation.
It's true. And I think it's also very dependent on what the rest of your hand does. If you say don't have a good alternative to playing Pocket Galaxy that turn, you probably just resign yourself to saying, okay, if it's counterspell, I'll just hold that L. But because Felkeine had a hand that looked decent enough to delay the Pocket Galaxy, he went for that. And I think the real test of skill is to identify whether that hand is decent enough to go for that.
All right. Well, with that, our second top 8 match has concluded for the initial match. This is a double elimination tournament in the top 8. So when we come back, we're going to have another match and check in to see if maybe Staz is going to show up or maybe we'll go somewhere else. We'll find out. You're watching the Hearthstone Masters Tour in Seoul.